The bridge of the UES Defiant was a graveyard of sparking consoles and flickering lights. Captain Marcus Kane stood amid the wreckage, his uniform torn and bloodied, watching through the cracked viewport as the last of his fleet burned in the void. 17 ships had entered the Kepler Nebula to intercept the hegemony invasion force. Only one remained. The Defiant herself was dying. Hull breaches sealed with emergency foam, engines running at 30% capacity, and weapon systems barely functional. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bridge, where 12 survivors worked frantically to keep their ship operational. The air recyclers wheezed with each breath, and the artificial gravity fluctuated unpredictably, making every movement a calculated risk. But Captain Kane's eyes held no defeat, only the cold calculation of a predator backed into a corner. The hegemony had made one critical error. They had assumed that destroying 90% of a human fleet meant victory. They had never encountered the human concept of a last stand. "Captain," called Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the communications station, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, but her hands remained steady on the controls. "The hegemony admiral is hailing us, demanding our surrender." Kane surveyed his bridge crew, the remnants of what had been the finest tactical team in the human fleet. Commander Torres at tactical, his left arm in a makeshift sling, but his eyes sharp as ever. Engineer Patel, whose quick thinking had kept their engines running after 3 direct hits. Navigator Williams, who had somehow plotted their escape route through the gravitational maze of the Kepler anomaly while under fire. These weren't just his crew. They were his family. And the hegemony had just made the mistake of threatening his family. Kane's lips curved into a grim smile. Put him through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Vexthar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. The alien's 4 arms gestured dismissively as his translator rendered his words into harsh, mechanical English. His reptilian features showed the satisfaction of a predator who believed his prey was cornered.
"Human vessel, you are outnumbered 47 to 1. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ship is crippled. Surrender now, and your crew will be granted the mercy of quick execution."
Kane stepped forward, his presence commanding despite his battered appearance. Behind him, his crew continued their work with quiet efficiency, each one knowing that their captain was buying them precious time.
"Admiral Vexthar, I appreciate your generous offer. However, I'm afraid I must decline. You see, you've made a fundamental error in your calculations."
The alien's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement.
"Error? I see one damaged ship against my entire armada. Your weapons are offline, your shields are down, and your hull is compromised. What error could there possibly be?"
Kane's smile widened, and for a moment, something predatory flickered in his eyes. Something that made even the battle-hardened alien admiral pause. "You assume that one human ship is less dangerous than 17. But you've never fought humans who have nothing left to lose." If you're fascinated by tales of human resilience against impossible odds, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. We're just getting started with this story of tactical brilliance. Admiral Vexthar's form darkened with anger. The hegemony had conquered 17 star systems through overwhelming force and technological superiority. No species had ever dared to mock them in the face of certain defeat.
"Your bravado will not save you, human. All ships, prepare to finish this pathetic display."
The transmission cut off, leading the bridge in tense silence. Kane turned to his crew. 12 souls who had survived the battle that claimed over 3,000 of their comrades. Each face showed the same expression. Not fear, but determination. "Commander Torres," Kane addressed his tactical officer. "Status on the hegemony formation." Torres consulted his damaged console, his fingers dancing across interfaces that sparked with each touch. 47 ships in standard battle formation, sir. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, 24 destroyers, and 8 support vessels. They're maintaining distance, probably planning to overwhelm us with coordinated fire. Kane nodded, his mind already working through possibilities that would have seemed impossible to any conventional military strategist. "And our position relative to the Kepler anomaly?" "Approximately 2,000 kilometers from the gravitational distortion field, sir. The anomaly is showing increased activity. Gravitational fluctuations are off the charts." The Kepler anomaly, a region of space where the laws of physics bent in unpredictable ways, where massive gravitational fields could crush ships or fling them across star systems without warning. Most species considered it a navigation hazard to be avoided at all costs. The hegemony had chosen this battlefield specifically to trap the human fleet against the anomaly, using it as a barrier to prevent escape. They had no idea they had just handed humanity its greatest weapon. "Lieutenant Chen," Kane said quietly, "transmit the following message on all frequencies. The last stand doctrine is now in effect. All surviving human vessels implement Protocol Omega." Chen's fingers flew across her console. "Message sent, sir. But Captain, we're the only surviving vessel." Kane's smile widened. "Are we?" The answer came 30 seconds later, as the Defiant sensors detected movement within the debris field of the destroyed human fleet. Emergency beacons began activating, not from ships, but from something far more dangerous. Human survivors in combat suits, armed with portable weapons and an intimate knowledge of how to turn wreckage into improvised weapons platforms. The hegemony had made their second critical error. They had assumed that destroying human ships meant destroying human resistance. They had never encountered the human ability to survive in conditions that would kill any other species. "Sir," Torres reported, his voice filled with growing excitement, "I'm reading 43 active human signatures in the debris field. They're building something." Kane nodded approvingly. "The last stand doctrine, Commander. When conventional warfare fails, humans become something else entirely. We become space orcs." The survivor's gambit. In the cold vacuum of space, 43 human survivors worked with desperate efficiency. Each one was a specialist. Engineers who could jury-rig weapons from scrap metal. Gunners who could calculate firing solutions in their heads. Tacticians who understood that survival meant thinking 3 steps ahead of the enemy. Sergeant Major Rodriguez floated among the wreckage of the UES Valiant, her magnetic boots clamping onto twisted hull plates as she directed the construction of what would later be called the Graveyard Arsenal. Around her, Marines and fleet personnel worked together, their emergency suits providing just enough life support for the task ahead. "Martinez, I need that plasma conduit rerouted to the improvised firing chamber," she called over the comm. "Thompson, how's the targeting array coming?" "Almost ready, Sergeant Major," came the reply. "Using the Valiant sensor array as the base, but we're having to calibrate manually." Rodriguez smiled grimly. The hegemony thought they were dealing with helpless survivors floating in space. They were about to learn that humans didn't become helpless. They became creative. Each improvised weapons platform was a masterpiece of human ingenuity. Plasma conduits from destroyed engines became energy weapons. Sensor arrays became targeting systems. Even the emergency rations were being converted into improvised explosives, their chemical components repurposed for warfare. But the real genius lay in the coordination. Each platform was being positioned to take advantage of the Kepler anomaly's gravitational fields, turning the space hazard into a force multiplier that would accelerate their projectiles to devastating velocities. The Hegemony's confidence. The Hegemony fleet began its final approach, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. Admiral Vexstar watched from his flagship as his ships moved into optimal firing positions. The single human vessel appeared helpless, drifting near the dangerous anomaly like a wounded animal. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "all ships report ready to fire. The human vessel shows no signs of movement or weapons activity." Vexstar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction.
Excellent. This will serve as a lesson to any other species that dares to challenge hegemony authority.
The Admiral's confidence was understandable. The Hegemony Third Fleet represented the pinnacle of alien military technology. Each ship was equipped with shields that could deflect planet-killing weapons, engines that could outrun light itself, and weapons that could reduce entire cities to atoms. What they lacked was the human understanding, but technology was only as dangerous as the mind wielding it. "All ships, target the human vessel," Vexstar commanded. "Fire on my mark." But as the Hegemony weapons charged, something extraordinary began to happen in the debris field. The human survivors had been busy during their conversation, using their intimate knowledge of both human and captured alien technology to create something unprecedented. A network of improvised weapons platforms built from the wreckage of their own ships. What's your favourite strategy game or military movie that features brilliant tactical comebacks? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing about what inspires tactical thinking. The cascade begins. "Now," Kane whispered. The debris field erupted in coordinated fire. 43 improvised weapons platforms, each one manned by human survivors who had turned their grief into fury, opened fire on the Hegemony fleet. The aliens had been so focused on the single remaining ship that they had ignored the harmless debris field. But the real surprise was yet to come. "Commander Torres," Kane said calmly, "initiate gravitational cascade protocol." Torres's hands moved across his console with practiced precision. The Defiant fired its remaining weapons, but not at the Hegemony ships, but at specific points within the Kepler anomaly. The carefully calculated shots triggered a chain reaction in the gravitational distortion field, creating unpredictable gravity wells that began pulling Hegemony ships off course. The science behind the gravitational cascade was something only humans had dared to study. While other species avoided gravitational anomalies, human scientists had spent decades learning to predict and manipulate them. The crew of the Defiant had turned the Kepler anomaly into the galaxy's largest artillery piece. Admiral Vexstar watched in growing horror as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Ships that had been in optimal firing positions suddenly found themselves caught in gravitational eddies, their weapons unable to target the elusive human vessel. Worse, the improvised platforms in the debris field were using the same gravitational distortions to enhance their weapons' effectiveness, turning simple human projectiles into devastating kinetic strikes. "Impossible!" Vexstar snarled. "How can they control the anomaly?" His tactical officer's voice trembled with fear. "Sir, They're not controlling it. They're predicting it. Their calculations are... They're treating the gravitational field like a weapon. The truth was even more remarkable than the hegemony could comprehend. Humans had spent centuries studying dangerous phenomena that other species avoided. While aliens built their technology to avoid gravitational anomalies, humans had learned to weaponize them. The turning tide. "Sir," Torres reported, "hegemony formation is breaking apart. 12 ships have been pulled into the anomaly's outer field. The rest are trying to retreat to a safe distance." Kane watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The hegemony's technological superiority meant nothing when they couldn't maintain formation or target effectively. The gravitational cascade had turned their own momentum against them. "Phase 2, Kane announced. "All human platforms target their command ship." The improvised weapons platforms, guided by survivors who had memorized every detail of hegemony ship design during years of warfare, focused their fire on Admiral Vexthar's flagship. The alien vessel's shields, designed to deflect conventional energy weapons, proved inadequate against the kinetic bombardment enhanced by gravitational acceleration. In space, Sergeant Major Rodriguez watched her improvised cannon fire its first shot. A piece of hull plating accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed by the anomaly's gravitational field. The projectile struck the hegemony flagship shields and punched through like they were tissue paper. "Target hit," she reported over the comm. "All platforms, continue firing." The debris field had become a constellation of muzzle flashes as 43 improvised weapons continued their bombardment. Each shot was guided by human intuition and desperation, turning scrap metal into instruments of war. The Admiral's realization. "Admiral," came a panicked voice from Vexthar's bridge. "Hull integrity failing. Gravitational stress is tearing us apart." Vexthar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His overwhelming numerical advantage had become meaningless. The humans had turned the battlefield itself into their ally, using physics as a weapon in ways his species had never imagined. Around him, his bridge crew struggled to maintain control as the ship bucked under the gravitational stress. Warning lights flashed as systems failed one by one, and the proud flagship of the hegemony Third Fleet began to come apart at the seams. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the fleet. Ships are being pulled off course. Weapons can't maintain target lock. And 3 vessels have already been destroyed by gravitational shear." The Admiral's 4 arms trembled as he realized the scope of his defeat. The humans hadn't just outfought his fleet, they had outfought it, turning the very environment against them. "All ships," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. "Retreat to minimum safe distance." But Kane wasn't finished. As the hegemony fleet pulled back, he activated the Defiant's communication system one final time. "Admiral Vexthar, this is Captain Kane. I want you to remember this moment. Remember that 1 damaged human ship and 43 survivors defeated your entire armada. Remember that humans don't surrender, we adapt. And remember that every time you face us in battle, you're not just fighting our ships, you're fighting our refusal to accept defeat." The transmission continued across all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in the hegemony fleet heard Kane's words. "Today, you learned the last stand doctrine. When you push humans to the brink, when you destroy everything we have, when you think you've won, that's when we become most dangerous. Because humans who have nothing left to lose have everything to fight for." The new reality. The hegemony fleet continued its retreat, leaving the debris field and the single human ship in control of the battlefield. But the victory was more than tactical. It was psychological. Word of the Last Stand doctrine would spread throughout the galaxy, carried by the surviving hegemony crews who had witnessed the impossible. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen said quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from across human space. Every fleet, every outpost, every colony ship is requesting details on the Last Stand doctrine." Kane smiled, looking out at the debris field where his people had turned defeat into victory through pure human stubbornness and ingenuity. "Send them everything, Lieutenant. Let the galaxy know that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our refusal to stay down when we're knocked down." In the debris field, the survivors began the process of salvaging what they could from their improvised weapons platforms. Each piece of equipment would be studied, analysed, and incorporated into future human military doctrine. The graveyard arsenal would become the template for a new kind of warfare, one where humans turned their environment into a weapon. Before we wrap up this incredible tale of human tactical superiority, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from and what you think makes humans such effective underdogs in impossible situations. The legacy. In the days that followed, the Last Stand doctrine would be studied in military academies across human space. The Battle of Kepler Nebula became legend, proof that human tactical thinking could overcome any odds. But more than that, it established a new reality in galactic warfare, that humans were most dangerous when they appeared most defeated. The hegemony would never again assume that destroying a human fleet meant victory. They had learned that humans didn't just fight with ships and weapons. They fought with physics itself, turning the universe into their ally through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. Captain Kane stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as rescue ships arrived to collect the survivors from the debris field. Each of those 43 heroes had proven that humans didn't need overwhelming force to win. They needed only the will to turn their environment into a weapon and their losses into motivation. The Last Stand doctrine had been born from desperation, but it would become humanity's signature in the stars. The knowledge that no matter how bad things looked, no matter how overwhelming the odds, humans would find a way to turn the tables. Because that's what humans did. They adapted, they improvised, and they never, ever gave up. If this story of human tactical brilliance and unbreakable spirit inspired you, please subscribe to Apex Fleet HFY for more tales of humanity's greatest victories against impossible odds. Hit that like button, and remember, in a universe full of advanced civilizations and overwhelming force, sometimes the most dangerous weapon is a human who refuses to surrender.